Apple might be late to the party sometimes, but when they show up, they'll bring a crowd and they'll make it a real party. That exact thing happened with both Apple Watch and AirPods. Both market segments existed before those came into the market, but Apple really made both those segments important. Like, people started caring about both of them once Apple started making those products. And most recently, Apple started entering the convertible 2-in-1 market by way of the iPad. Sure, the iPads existed for a long time, and convertible 2-in-1s have existed for a long time. But now Apple's pitch on the iPad is it can replace your computer. Last month, Apple announced one more product to push the iPad even closer to replacing your laptop, and that's with the Magic Keyboard. The Magic Keyboard introduces a lot of new features that we haven't seen before in tablet keyboards. But are the features introduced with the new Magic Keyboard enough to truly make your iPad a laptop replacement? And more importantly, is it worth the $300 cost of admission? This is NOISO, and this is my iPad Magic Keyboard review. So let's start off with some things that I like about the Apple Magic Keyboard. First off, the design. I actually really appreciate this design because Apple actually chose to do something different here. Instead of sticking with the same floppy tablet cover that they've had with former keyboards, now it's a much more robust hinge that makes the tablet feel a lot more like a laptop in the hand. This improves the experience and stability when you're typing on your lap, and it also brings the tablet closer to your face, so this 11-inch tablet appears slightly larger. This gives the iPad the one thing that I've always wanted Apple to produce, and that's a kickstand. While it might be a $300 kickstand, it makes watching videos on the iPad a lot easier, even if you don't want to use the keyboard itself. The typing experience itself feels nice, and the new keys are quite comfortable to type on. Apple brought over their new switches that they introduced last year in the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and they also have it in the 13-inch MacBook Pro for this year, and it really makes a difference. Typing on this is comparable to typing on a laptop, and it feels really nice. And in addition, unlike other convertible laptops, tapping on the screen doesn't make the tablet bounce as much because the hinge is a lot stronger. It's also nice to have the charging port on the side with pass-through charging to the iPad, so you don't have to have a charger sticking out the side of your iPad while in use. In the last couple weeks, I've been using this for typing out articles or quick messages to friends, and it's really nice to type on. And it really makes the iPad a lot closer to what a laptop experience feels like. Now, let's move on to things that I don't like. First of all, the material that the Magic Keyboard uses attracts dirt and grease very poorly. And as a result, it always looks dirty and it's tough to keep clean. In addition to that, I'm a little bit worried about the long-term durability of this unit, because even within the first week of use, I found the corners dog-earing, I found scratches on it, and a weird bump was appearing on the bottom. And while I mentioned that I like the design of this, all of my other frustrations actually stem from the design of this. First of all, the keyboard layout is actually quite cramped. And while I understand on an 11-inch device, it's tough to have a full keyboard layout, I'm confused on some of the decisions Apple made. If you plan on using this for coding, I wouldn't recommend it because the brackets are actually quite shrunk, and so it's tough to click them without hitting a backslash or something else. I'm sure you've already heard that there's no escape button and no function row, and so you're limited to the number keys, the letter keys, and some function keys. When I use the number row, I actually find myself accidentally hitting the bottom of the iPad with the backs of my fingers, which gets kind of frustrating at times. And while the trackpad acceleration is quite smooth and it's enjoyable to use, it is quite cramped on the bottom. And Apple had to do that because they only had so much usable space. Because of the design of the hinge, there's only one angle that the iPad can sit at, which really limits your options when it comes to using it in bed or on the couch, because Especially if you're taller, you might not be able to tilt the iPad back to an angle that you're comfortable with. While generally the iPad stays stable when you're trying to type in your lap, I found it tilts backwards slightly, so I have to hold the iPad down with the palms of my hands, which can get kind of uncomfortable over time. Oh, and if you got familiar with Apple's one-finger lift to open up MacBooks, don't try it on the iPad because it's not going to work. This is actually really difficult to open up the iPad from the keyboard. I have to specifically open up with two hands and spread it open like a book and then set it down on whatever surface that I'm trying to type on. This is not a good experience, and it's definitely not typical of an Apple product. Finally, the rest of the issues that I had with the Magic Keyboard don't actually lie in the keyboard itself, but the way that iPadOS handles keyboard and trackpad input. Now, both are quite new to iPadOS, so hopefully it will get better over time. But the fact is, many apps are just clearly not designed for keyboard or trackpad input. Microsoft has had to deal with this for quite some time and has had a lot of success in slowly pushing developers to make apps for both keyboard, trackpad, and touch input. But Apple's just still very new to this. All in, I've had the Magic Keyboard for about 2 weeks, and I have enjoyed my use of it. But I wanted to love this keyboard. I wanted to legitimately replace my laptop. And while I think the iPad Pro is an incredible device, and anything to make it more useful is fantastic, Apple tried something that they've never done before, and unfortunately created a compromised product. I don't want to give up my ability to use the function row for the sake of this cool hinge design. I don't want to give up a larger trackpad for it. If I had to choose between using the iPad with a Magic Keyboard as a laptop and a laptop as a laptop, I would choose the laptop any day, regardless of how high the specs are. I would prefer using a $200 or $300 laptop for this. But remember, the Magic Keyboard itself is $300. So I'd recommend you're better off just getting an iPad and a dedicated laptop. Apple was trying to bridge the gap between the two, but unfortunately, until they can actually make using a keyboard and trackpad usable in iPadOS, I don't think they're going to bridge that gap. Thanks for watching NOISO. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you have your own thoughts about the iPad Pro and Magic Keyboard, be sure to leave them down in the comments. And also let me know if there's any other products that you want me to review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.